Hey, I want to talk a little bit about the Venice Beach Contest, Muscle Contest.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I think they had close to 3,000 people down there.
It's an extravaganza.
Yeah. And I want to thank a lot of the fans that came and maybe post some pictures of them because, out of the hundreds that came up, I got photos with a few of them, and I think they deserve credit on the show.
Yeah,
so I'm going to post that up there too. But it's a good contest.
I competed last year in that.
I know you did.
Yeah.
It's a good contest.
It's amazing. I think 12 months have already gone by.
I know. And we got
but he puts on a good show. Joe Wheatley
puts on a good show. You get a lot of people. You got a bodybuilding show. You got the vendors.
You got the induction of the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
Jim Morris this
year.
year.
And then you had people show up like Jim Morris. You had Ed Giuliani was there. Kent Keane was there.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
Manny Perry showed up, who was a stunt double for Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to meet people and kind of just synchronize your time.
Oh, it's like family.
It is like family.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a full day, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. You know, we had a booth with our shirts, my Rick Drasin originals, and we sold a bunch of shirts. But making contact was fun. And,
right. And then military jet flies overhead.
Oh, that was so cool.
It's magnificent.
The big bomber flies
magnificent. Over. Yeah, you can really feel that rumble in your gut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and during one of the booths, you grabbed that bottle, and the guy was next to me. He was a nice guy. It's a Vita Veggie. It's a powdered vegetable, and this is not a paid advertisement. I just want to tell you about it. It's got oat bran fiber, it's got protein, and it's got tons of cinnamon in it. Cinnamon has a lot of benefit to the body.
Yeah, I've heard that.
All mixed together. If you don't get veggies and all your
and who has time to make all that these
days? So you do like 3 scoops a day, and they have a website on it. It's nu-.com, and it's. I just want people to know about it, so I'm probably going to bring that up at some point.
It's a convenient, lazy man's way to get your nutrients when you don't have the time to cook it in the kitchen.
Exactly, and it's shit. It tastes like pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
I do that all day long. Put it over there. All right, so I think, what's our subject today going to be?
Well, today I'm going to talk about alignment.
Alignment. Yeah, I need to get my car front end aligned.
Yeah, exactly. And the consequences of not getting your car aligned.
All right, so can we start?
Yes, now, you know.
Can we start?
We can start.
You got that? Let's start the show. Today we're going to talk about alignment. I got Doug BRIGNOLE here, who's been back several times. You people always ask for him. He has a world of knowledge. He knows everything about everything, everything about stuff I don't even know about, and things that I don't know if I want to know about. But he's a good man, and I like having him on here. So we're going to talk about alignment today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. You know, when we work out, we do certain things correctly by accident.
Yeah.
When we do a curl, there's alignment happening. In other words, you're pulling directly opposite resistance.
Right.
And if you were to draw a plane, if you were to look over a person doing curls, you would see that the direction of gravity and the direction of movement and the elbow and the origin and the insertion of the target muscle are all in one plane. That's the way it should be. Okay, so let me give you an example of how it might not be that way. Imagine you're looking over me and I'm doing skull crushers with dumbbells.
Okay.
I'm doing it with alignment right now. In other words, you're looking down from the ceiling at me, down gravity. My movement is in line with gravity. My elbow and the origin and insertion of the tricep are all on the exact same plane, but now all of a sudden I let my elbow drift out. Okay, now gravity is still doing this, but my movement is now doing that. And the elbow and the origin and the insertion of the tricep are no longer on that same plane. Okay, so let's just say I started with a 20-pound dumbbell. I still have a 20-pound dumbbell, but now I've started to engage my pectoral muscle because this wants to fall outward now.
Oh, you're trying to pull it in.
So now what happens is that 20 pounds is now divided between pectoral work and, so in other words, it's a reduction to the tricep.
Right.
You're losing efficiency.
Right.
Okay. Now, there's another thing that happens too, is when I get halfway here, it starts to rotate my arm, so now I'm straining rotator cuff.
Right.
Okay, so alignment is critical for efficiency. As soon as you break alignment, you lose efficiency. So what happens if you're looking at over me from overhead and I'm doing a dumbbell push-up like this, and all of a sudden I start doing this? Well, this is going to start to rotate my shoulders backward, right? So the message here is whenever you're doing an exercise, think about alignment and ask yourself, is the direction of the movement and the direction of the resistance on the exact same plane? A common example is people are doing these cable crossovers.
Yes.
They're facing out, but the resistance isn't coming from straight opposite their movement, it's coming from a slight upward angle.
Okay.
Okay, that's an example of how this is going to start to rotate you up. Butterfly machine, same thing. You're letting your elbows drop, right? You're not staying parallel to the resistance. You're letting this, so now it's starting to crank your arm back. You're losing efficiency, losing benefit to the target muscle, and straining muscles that are not part of your target.
When you do cable crossovers, Joe Gold had 3 angles. He had upper, middle, and low. So you can do them from the top, do them from the middle, do them from the bottom. You're still getting the contraction with the pec.
Well, number one rule
Yeah.
is always go opposite resistance. If the pulley is high, you got to go low.
Right.
If the pulley is low, you got to go high.
Exactly.
But now we're adding the other element of, is it consistent with the attachment of the muscle? Okay, so if I go straight ahead on a flat dumbbell press, I'm moving straight toward the highest pectoral fiber on my sternum. Right? If I'm starting to do this, and you look up over me, you'll say, oh my God, he's going opposite resistance. Yes, but the origin and the insertion of the target muscle is not on that same plane. So now I'm losing benefit.
Yeah, I see that.
So that's why it gets a little complicated, because you're talking about several things coming together at one time.
There's many people that I see in the gym do cable crossovers, but they're not doing crossovers. They're doing this. They're doing presses with the cables, and it's not the correct way to do it. I was always told, imagine you have a barrel on your chest and you're going around the barrel to work your pecs, not this thing.
Well, that's actually a good way of thinking about it, because what's happening is your humerus, this bone right here,
Yeah.
is actually pivoting around the shoulder joint. It's creating a circular movement.
Right.
So that barrel thing is a good idea, because you're mimicking that circular movement.
Right.
When you're doing a bench press, you're doing a linear movement. You're going, that way you're not coming toward the sternum. So that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think of it.
Okay, I have another question. What about bench presses when you go wide, narrow, and medium grip?
Well, that's completely nonsense, because your pectoral muscle has no idea what your grip is.
Yeah.
All it knows is it's pulling on that upper arm bone.
Okay.
So imagine that you're that pectoral fiber. You have no eyes, you have no ears. You're just pulling on that bone, right? If I bent it, my elbow, or straightened my elbow, it still doesn't know. It's only doing this. Now, if my arm is straight, or straighter, I should say wider, right? Then I'm going to get less range of motion.
Okay.
If it's bent, I'm going to get more range of motion, more triceps, a lot more triceps.
That's my point.
But, you know, we talked about this in a previous segment, this whole peripheral recruitment thing.
Yeah.
So is the peripheral recruitment of other muscles beneficial to your target muscle? I would say most times no. I would say that the tricep is substantially weaker than the pec, and it'll fatigue before the pec does. So you don't want any weak links in the chain. You
I
want
see that, yeah.
you want to maximize the load to the target muscle, and if anything along the way, hand strength, forearm strength, bicep, tricep, anything else gives out first, then your target muscle is getting cheated.
Okay, what about leg extensions? Over the years, when I do them, some people do them, I'll do straight, and then sometimes I'll do this way, and then sometimes I'll do this way. This way doesn't feel much, but if I turn my toes in a little bit, I feel it goes along the outside of the quad more than it does if I go straight. But is that nonsense?
That's nonsense.
Is it?
And the reason it's nonsense is because the knee is a hinge. It only bends and unbends one way.
Right.
Right? So it doesn't matter whether you're facing north or facing south. It
Okay.
doesn't matter whether your knees are in or knees are facing out. Either way, your knees are straightening and bending, straightening and bending. The whole quadricep does that.
Okay.
Now, when you turn your toes in a little bit, it's more comfortable, because you bring your knees more into alignment with the rotation of the machine.
Okay.
But it's not hitting a different part of the muscle. It can't. I mean, the only way you could hit outer quad or inner quad is if you could somehow cause the outer quad to pull the shin more to the outside than straight, and you can't.
Okay.
It only goes straight,
All right.
unless you're bow-legged,
Yeah.
and then they don't go straight at all.
That doesn't. You walk around it. Squats. Narrow squats, wide squats.
Same thing. Well, if you go wide squats, then you work more adduct or more inner thigh,
You got a
because your
good
legs
chance-
are going out.
You got a good chance of hemorrhoids.
Yeah, especially if you go too low.
Exactly. Now, if you go narrow squats, people say, oh, I do narrow squats because it develops my quad better. I don't know that it does or if it doesn't. What do you think?
Well, if you go narrow squats, I mean, let's start off with the hip width, right? Your hip width is really about like that,
Right.
average, right? So basically what you want is your knees and your feet and your hips to all be in one straight line,
That's alignment.
right? That's alignment. So that way when your knees go forward, you're getting more quads than you would be if you were spreading out that
Okay.
resistance to the outside and getting the inside and all that. So again, efficiency.
If you go wide, I know a lot of powerlifters go wide because they have more power going wide,
Yeah.
and they don't have to, they go low, but they don't go as low. It's just a different angle for power.
Well, a power lifter doesn't care about development.
No.
He only cares about getting the weight up,
Right.
and the rule is your torso has to descend to a certain point and has to ascend to a certain point, and how you do that is up to you.
What's your opinion on bench squats?
Bench squats.
Squatting to a bench.
Oh, squatting to a bench. Yeah, fine. fine.
I think it's a good safety feature because
Yeah.
a lot of people squat too low and then they throw their knees and their back
Well,
out.
if you go too low,
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal situation is when you're squatting, you want your back to be arched, you want your tailbone to be slightly back,
Right.
and you get to a point where that tailbone starts to curl under, and that's going to really strain the lower back. See, vertebrae of the spine are little square blocks. Imagine little square blocks, and in between you got a gelatinous tissue.
Yeah, it's
right. Well, when you squeeze one side in, you open up the other side, and you squeeze out that tissue. So that's how herniation happens.
Right.
So you want to always make sure that your back is in its normal anatomical position when you're squatting. And if you're super loaded, you've got all that weight pressing down on that spine too.
Yeah.
You add to that a curling under of the tailbone, and you're gonna have a problem.
This carries away a little bit from alignment, but somebody asked me the other day, shoulder injury is very common.
Yes.
Everybody has a shoulder problem, and to get back and hold, I can't even do it, hold the bar in a squat anymore with this shoulder, I can't. I'd be like a one-arm type of thing. So I use the Smith machine and hold on with one arm, but if I can't even squat, not because of my knee. But years ago, I think it was Dave Grieber came out with a thing that fit across your shoulders, and it had bars coming this way. So the bar fit on your shoulders. You could hold the bar like this and actually
Well, Zane had something like that. It might have been the same one, or it might have been a different one.
Yeah.
But it was a thing that hooked on your shoulders, and and the place were here on the side.
Oh, no, yeah, this was the actual squat bar, but you can actually hold the bar out in
Oh,
front
I've
of you.
seen that. That actually exists right now. I saw that at Gold's Gym.
Yeah, so it helps you to squat without having to rupture your shoulder holding the bar.
Look, you know about wrestling. You know that rotating the arm backward is a submission hold, right? There's no reason why in the course of normal, healthy exercise, you need to enter a submission hold position.
No.
Right? So rotating the arm externally to the outside, beyond your comfort zone, is not good. Don't think you should put up with it just because there's better ways to work around
I'll give you a
it.
point. 1965, I started wrestling. I wrestled at the Olympic Auditorium. Somebody got me in a top wrist lock, and when they did, they went back just a little bit, and I felt my rotator go, ah! It's 1965. To this day, it still hurts me.
Right. Look, I'm 55 years old, and I'm injury-free. I hurt my shoulder a little bit mildly years and years ago doing overhead presses.
Yeah.
And of course, I haven't done any since, and I'm perfectly happy without them. But, for those of you that are out there 18, 20, 25 years old and you think you're invincible, hopefully, God willing, you'll be 55 years old, 65, 75 years old. It's not worth it having a little extra muscle.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't mean to suggest that you will have extra muscle by doing these exercises.
No.
There's better ways to get the extra muscle, but the point is you don't need to jeopardize your joints in the early years because you'll suffer a consequence in the later years and you'll regret it.
Yeah, here's a case in point. When I was 30 years old, 25, 30 years old, I was in really good shape. By the time I was 50 years old, I was in really good shape. And I thought, I'm never going to get old. I'm always going to keep what I got. And now I'll be 71 in July. I've tried to maintain everything I have, but through injuries and joint pains, I can't do what I used to do.
No.
And everybody will get to that point sometime, and they'll think, oh my God, I thought it was going to last forever.
It really is hard to imagine when you're 25 years old that you'll ever be 75.
Oh, you
It
can't.
seems very, very abstract.
You can't. And looking back now,
And all of a sudden you're there.
you're there, and then most of the friends you train with have died, or the ones you see that haven't died look like they're going to die, or they just haven't been buried.
Or they
yet.
wish they were dead.
They wish they were dead. So you got to be smart about your training. You got to be smart about it.
Yes,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
you're going to have injuries, and it's just.
And
not
alignment is part of that.
Yeah, it is.
Keeping proper alignment really does spare the joints. I mean, I can't tell you. Well, look, here's another example. If you're doing an overhead press, which I, by the way, don't recommend, but if you're doing an overhead press and you were to look over me, looking down on the resistance, this forearm and this joint, all these better be in alignment, but usually they're not because most people don't have that mobility in their shoulder joint, and so they have a slight forward slide.
Yeah.
Well, you're out of alignment, and that's going to cause a forward tilt to this forearm. You're going to strain your rotator cuff doing it, and you're going to regret it years later.
Actually, the better way to do that, if it's going to happen, is use the Smith machine. It kind of keeps you in line.
Well, it does, and it keeps the bar from wanting to fall forward on its own.
Right.
So that is less risky than doing it with a free weight.
Right.
But yeah, again, we've talked about compound exercises and the benefit or non-benefit of that. If there was such a huge payoff to doing an overhead press that it was worth the risk, I would say go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But there isn't such a huge payoff. You can get that payoff in other ways.
I stopped doing them years ago. Joe Barata, who I worked for in Bakersfield, was a little short guy with big wide shoulders, a bodybuilder, and he says, Rick, I never do presses. I just do front, sides, and rear laterals.
Yeah.
And he had the best delts I'd ever seen, and no press. And Ken Waller told me the same thing.
Yeah. Now, if you can do a front, side, or rear lateral that's early phase loaded, which means you get more resistance at the beginning and less at the end.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Now you've really gotten the perfect formula.
Right.
If you're trying to compare an overhead press with a standing side lateral, you're going to be disappointed. It's not that the movement is bad; it's that it's not early phase loaded.
And the other thing is, if you do have a shoulder injury, your traps take over.
Right.
The scapula and traps take over, and so you don't get the emphasis on the actual deltoid.
And we talked about the benefit of isolation.
Right.
right? And how whenever you're isolating, there's still some peripheral recruitment going on anyway. But yes, if you're doing standing side raise,
Yeah.
the law of physics will dictate that downward pull of gravity will load your trapezius whether you want it to or not.
Interesting.
Even though you're doing a side raise for the deltoid,
Yeah.
it's going to hit traps at least as much, if not more, than the deltoid.
Yeah, it's gonna-
Whereas if you're horizontal and you're doing it, you're going to get almost no trap.
That's true.
And you're early phase loaded on your side raise.
That's true. You just have to lay down.
And who doesn't want to lie down
It's not the lying down, it's getting up. It's hard.
when you're 75 years old?
Yeah, it's hard to
Or
get up.
70.
But now, anything more on the alignment?
No, we've got another subject for tomorrow's show.
Okay.
But I don't want to give away all my marbles right away.
Okay.
I wanna-
There's one thing I want to talk
Let me
about.
get
There's a
it.
couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, Wellness Nutrition, Wellness Fitness
Oh, right.
Nutrition.
Right.
They're one of our sponsors, and they have all the supplements that you might want to take to get better. They do a blood test. They do a panel.
And since we don't eat right all the time,
Right.
supplements are good.
Yeah, and they'll tell you what you need and what you don't need, and they'll ship it out to you with a prescription. So someone told me they ordered today's competitor in some big contest. He said, I got my stuff, and I got a prescription emailed to me as well. So I have a prescription for whatever I need. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It's legit.
It's legit.
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Rodriguez, Wellness Fitness Nutrition. I'll put the website up. Check them out.
Sounds
Take a look
good.
at their site. They're really good. The other thing was I wanted to mention is that I wanted to thank all of you fans down at the show at the Muscle Beach this weekend. I'm losing my voice because I was talking the whole day down there. But all of you came up to me and told me how much you liked the show, and I really appreciate it. I got pictures with some of you, and I didn't get pictures with a lot of you, but I did post them, and I do thank you for being supportive. And if you didn't buy a shirt at the show on my Rick Racing Originals, you go to the website, you can purchase it there, and it's shipped out the same day. So take a look at that and do what you have to do if you,
You know,
want to get it.
I mentioned to you earlier before the show started, I want to do a segment just about this man. This man is just phenomenal. His trajectory, his history is unmatched in the industry. You know, some of you just know him from these recent shows. But this man has been around the block 25 times. You had 25 lives, more lives than a cat.
I have. That's why I'm so tired.
He's done so many things, bodybuilding, professional wrestling, TV appearances, Mae West, all kinds of things that this man has done over the years. He's really, really, really knowledgeable on the history of the industry, and I so value being on your show.
Thank you so much. Actually, you can go to Wikipedia and punch my name in or Google. It'll tell you everything.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to close this show out. Losing my voice.
by demand, by
And
force.
I want to thank you guys for watching Rick's Corner and having Doug on here. We're going to do another show, and stay tuned for that as well. And thanks for being a fan. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
It's rickdrasin.com. He is the equalizer, baby. See you next time.